Hello and welcome to the Griddy Films spoiler-free review of Justice League. This is, of course, the 2017 superhero movie just released in theaters, starring Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and Henry Cavill. So I'm going to quickly go over some of the weaknesses of this movie without giving any spoilers. I think one of the obvious and most well-known weaknesses of this movie is going to come in the CGI. There's, of course, the now infamous Henry Cavill mustache fiasco, but even aside from that, which if you don't know about it, I highly suggest you look into it. I won't get into all of that here. But yeah, so CGI just looks a little bit dated or maybe just a little bit rushed. Maybe they could have pushed the release date and focused a little bit more on perfecting some of the CGI or just a bigger budget. I'm not sure if it was time or budget or both. It's not enough that it makes the movie unwatchable. It's not totally awful. No, that's not true. Some of it is pretty awful. Another weakness that I found in this is another well-known semi-controversial point, and that's going to come in the costume design. There's a very, I guess again, now infamous picture of the Amazons from Wonder Woman versus the Amazons from Justice League, and there's a marked difference, which does bother me, although, and I'll get more into this in the extended nitty-gritty review if you're interested in hearing more about my opinions on this, but he tends to do the same thing with both male and female characters, where it's just blatant over-sexualization of everybody, and it's just unnecessary. So it wasn't just the Amazons, I was some of the male characters as well. Just put more clothes on these people. And now onto some spoiler-free discussion of some of the strengths of Justice League. On a surprising turn of events for the DC Extended Universe, the writing in this movie was actually fairly strong. There are some weaknesses here and there, but plot made sense. There weren't a lot of plot holes. The characters were developed really well, especially considering the fact that they introduced 3 brand new characters. I think a lot of the strengths in the writing are probably largely due to Joss Whedon's inputs. That may not be true, but that's the general impression that I got. As far as a spoiler-free review goes, pretty much all I can say is surprisingly strong, not really any plot holes, good stuff going on with the characters. Another strength in Justice League is going to be one of the more obvious ones, largely because this part is building on the films that came before it, but that's going to be the acting and the casting. Gal Gadot is amazing reprising her role as Wonder Woman, that's no surprise there. Henry Cavill is good as Superman, I thought he was very well cast, and even Ben Affleck, I know a lot of people really didn't like that casting choice, but I think he fits it well. I thought he did a good job as Batman. Just everybody was really well cast. Even, say, Ezra Miller, who doesn't fit at all a physical description of Barry Allen from the comics or any other iteration we've seen of him so far. It still just felt natural. He fit into the world very well, and he just gave just a fresh feel to the universe. So I actually really liked that casting choice, even though physically it was a interesting choice. Still not super fond of Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I love her in general as an actor, but I think that was a miscast there. But other than that, very strong throughout. Overall, I gave Justice League a 64.71 out of 100. I know on a standard scale that would be a much lower grade, but in my book I consider that to be a B-. It's not the best film in the world, certainly not a perfect film, but it's fun and it's enjoyable, and I think if you can walk out of a movie and say you had fun watching it, even if it's not a perfect movie, that's a good experience. I would recommend it for anyone who likes the superhero genre or who just wants to see something fun and maybe familiar. If you're not a big superhero fan, you can probably pass on this one. So that's all for the Griddy Films spoiler-free review of Justice League. If you're interested in a more in-depth analysis and review, please check out the nitty-gritty Justice League review. Just keep in mind that there are definitely going to be tons of spoilers in there. So that's it for this review. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe to Griddy Films on YouTube, and you can also follow Griddy Films on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. There's also a Griddy Films Patreon account if you're interested in learning how to support Griddy Films. All of the social media accounts are linked on the YouTube channel as well as on griddyfilms.com. That's going to be GRIDDY films.com. See you next time.